It's Friday afternoon. The 49ers are just getting started with their summer of offseason work. We've got a Brock Purdy update for you today. We've got a Ricky Pearsall update for you today. And as a surprise little addition, Christian McCaffrey leads the 49ers in Madden rating this year. We're going to go through the top 49ers Madden ratings in the new video game where Christian McCaffrey is obviously on the cover. So this is Friday 49ers news update. We also have verification of my theory that there was a lot of digital production behind the Christian McCaffrey Madden cover. Wait till you see this video, and you won't have to wait long. I'm going to show it to you right away. This is how the Madden cover was made. McCaffrey against the Raiders. Everybody was saying, wait, they have played the Raiders. That was from the game. And I said, no. That was not from the game because the 49ers were wearing their red jerseys. They hadn't played the Raiders with Christian McCaffrey on the roster while wearing their red jerseys. So they literally made this in a studio. They trolled the Raiders in a studio to make the Madden cover. That's what Christian McCaffrey has been up to over the past couple months. Posing for the Madden cover. There you go, Madden 2025. We'll get to those ratings in just a little bit. But first, we've got to finish up the Brock Purdy update, and we've got to give you the Ricky Pearsall update. Brock Purdy's round to work is happening just outside of Jacksonville. This is where he typically is when he isn't at the 49ers facility in the offseason working with his quarterbacks coach, Will Hewlett. There's also a biomechanical expert, Tom Gormelli, who he works with in Jacksonville. We could take a look at some of Purdy's work with Tom Brady's voice underneath it. This is coming from the recent Patriots Hall of Fame induction.
No matter who you are, there are bumps and hits and bruises along the way. And my advice is to prepare yourself, because football lessons teach us that success and achievement come from overcoming adversity, and that team accomplishment far exceeds anyone's individual goals. To be successful at anything, you don't have to be special. You just have to be what most people aren't. Consistent, determined, and willing to work for it. No shortcuts. Integrity, purpose, determination, and discipline that it takes to be a champion in life.
That was inspiring from Brady. That was also good stuff from Brock Purdy. I think we could even play this while we talk. Yeah, this is perfect. We'll put Brock over on the side. Show him working a lot of the hip mobility and lower body stuff. You take a look at his quads. They're like tree trunks. You saw a little glimpse of them there. Purdy is just so strong in the lower body. And I think that has helped him in so many ways. Obviously, a good base for his throws. Despite the fact that he's not the biggest quarterback, he still has that strength that he draws from. But it's also big when it comes to his scrambling ability. He shook off an Eagles defensive back, Bradley Roby, the cornerback. I was just watching tape of the Eagles game from this past year. Right before the first touchdown to Brandon Ayuk, Brock Purdy shook off a tackle. He was running toward the left pylon, and it looked like he should have been tackled at the line of scrimmage, but Bradley Roby just bounced right off of him. That's a testament to the lower body strength that Brock Purdy brings to the table. He'll run through some tackles, especially from some of these defensive backs who aren't particularly big. I mean, the NFL is downsized across both the offense and the defense. Speed has become a bigger part of the game than it was in the past. So you no longer have hulking nickelbacks. In the past, nickelbacks, I mean, this is a long time ago, but you'd get some nickelbacks who would look like mini linebackers. 49ers, I mean, and it might trend back toward the other direction, especially if some teams start to run the ball a little bit more like the 49ers. I know San Francisco's made its hay against some of these smaller defenses, but in general, you've got smaller safeties, smaller linebackers, smaller nickels, and because of that, a quarterback that's got big quads, that's got a strong base, he's going to be able to run through some tackles. Brock Purdy, we just watched in that video, he's got really strong quads. Quadzilla, two of them on the 49ers team, Nick Bosa and Brock Purdy. So that's the work that Purdy's putting in. Why don't we watch the work that Ricky Pearsall, the 49ers rookie wide receiver, is putting in? This may also be in Florida. Remember that Ricky Pearsall went to the University of Florida at Gainesville. I haven't confirmed where this was at, but we can watch Ricky getting after it.
Place, right, left, right. That's real fast. That's real fast. Hit, left, right, left. Good job, man. Good job.
He was upset with himself. The pass was a little bit behind him, but he wasn't able to bring it in. One thing that we know that Ricky Pearsall definitely has: hands. I mean, the guy made some circus catches in Florida. He was very, very consistent with his hands. We also know that he's got great footwork. And, every time that I watch this, and we'll play this while I talk again, because I know it was a short video, so I want you to be able to enjoy this in all of its glory. Anytime I watch his footwork, I see that little stutter step. I see that ability to change directions even at 6'1", which is unnatural. But I see those, that cutting ability from Ricky Pearsall. And I think of his dad, who was a good receiver at Northern Arizona. And I think of the fact that his dad raised him to be a technical wide receiver. Some of the stuff that Ricky does, you could tell this is hours and hours of training to perfect it. Behind all of his movement, this is the movement of somebody. Obviously, it looks like a natural, and he's got the genes. His mom was a volleyball player. His dad was that great receiver for the University of Northern Arizona. But on top of the genetics, you have to put in the hours. This is thousands of hours of work to be able to move the way that he does. And the very first time that we saw Ricky Pearsall in the 49ers practice field in rookie minicamp, we saw this movement ability, and it was just so much better than all of the other rookies. So much more natural, so much more fluid. That immediately told us that this guy is a natural with his footwork. And that's what Kyle Shanahan likes. The footwork can generate separation, right? The NFL is a game of nuances. And especially when it comes to receivers against defensive backs, everybody's fast. Everybody can move fairly well. But it's the slight shoulder lean. It's it's a drop of your shoulder, the line of scrimmage, to set the defensive back up for movement in another direction. You're using and leveraging defensive backs' own proclivity to anticipate against them. And I think that, when you look at Ricky Pearsall, because of the background with his dad, who set all those records at Northern Arizona, teaching him all of the nuances since he was young, Ricky's not one of those receivers that's swimming in new information and unable to pick it up, right? Every single little morsel of advice that he gets at the NFL level, that's just adding to what he's already mastered. He's very polished already because he's been working at this stuff, not just for 4 years in college football, but for over a decade throughout his entire football life, training to be a receiver. So I think the family connection is extremely important for Ricky Pearsall. His dad, by the way, is a firefighter at the Phoenix Fire Department now. We got to meet his family when he came in the day after that he was drafted. So it's going to be Pearsall for the 49ers on one end and Brock Purdy throwing to him on the other end. Of course, we see Brock Purdy putting in the work. How about look at the 49ers Madden ratings? This might generate some discussion. Sterling Bennett posted this online. Madden 2025, that's not actually Christian McCaffrey. That right there, that is video game Christian McCaffrey. Looking pretty nice. I think that the graphics obviously have improved over the years. Now, this is just going to be my 2 cents. I think the gameplay of Madden has not improved over the years. Hopefully now with Christian McCaffrey on the cover, the game is a little bit more versatile. And maybe, that college football game is coming out, NCAA football. I think it's the same developer. I think it's EA Sports. But at least there's another game out there that people can buy. And even if it's coming from EA Sports, maybe that somehow motivates the people that are working on Madden to improve the gameplay of Madden. I digress. This is not going to be a video game review. This is going to be a look at the 49ers Madden 2025 ratings. McCaffrey, he's a 99. Anybody who's a 99 in Madden, I think they get like a special plaque and they make a big social media reveal out of it. And Trent Williams is not going to get that because he's a 98. That's too bad. I don't know what makes Trent Williams a 98. I don't know his availability, durability part of this. I guess he's been hurt a little bit more for the 49ers over the course of the past couple of years, but still the best tackle in football. George Kittle, much deserved, 97. Nick Bosa, he has his number, 97. But I guess Bosa's going to have to deliver a few more sacks to enter that 99 club. Fred Warner, what does he have to do? 96? It's hard to be better than Fred Warner's been that linebacker position. Mooney Ward's in the 90s. Brandon Ayuk is in the 90s. 91, 90. Talanoa Hufanga, 90, coming off the ACL. That's a nice rating for him. Deebo Samuel, 88. Kyle Juszczyk, 88. Greenlaw, 87. I mean, this is a problem. Brock Purdy at 85. Seems like they're buying into some of the tired media lines that are just retreads over and over and over. Brock Purdy, how he doesn't have at least a 90 in a video game when he put up historical numbers. The measurables might not have been good at the combine, but they sure show up on the field. His ability to do certain things with his legs and obviously with his arm, with his accuracy, plus the intangible ability to play the quarterback position. Brock Purdy is definitely better than an 85, especially if you're rating him against these other players. And then Devondre Campbell, the linebacker that the 49ers just signed, he was previously with the Packers, was an all-pro a couple years ago. He is at 83, which isn't terrible. If they can get an 83 type of performance from Campbell this season, then there won't be that much of a gap between him and Dre Greenlaw. And if Greenlaw misses at least the first 4 games, that's definitely a gap that the 49ers are interested in closing. So those are the Madden ratings. You could drop in the comment section. Do you agree with them? I'll put them up one more time if you want to leave your comments right now. Agree, disagree? What do you think of Purdy? Slide it here at the 85. And what do you think of the video game representation of Christian McCaffrey? All feedback is welcome in the comment section. Let's build that community up as we analyze the 49ers on what is a beautiful Friday afternoon. It is June 14th. So last year on this date, I was flying to Africa. We were headed to Ethiopia, and then we were headed to Tanzania. And it was awesome. We went on a safari out there. No such extremely distant travel plans this year. We're going far. We're going across the ocean again, but no Tanzania this year. That was cool. I just saw it was June 14th. I'm like, damn, at this time last year, I was on a 14-hour flight from Chicago to Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. Ethiopian Airlines was legit. Star Alliance treated us well. So it was good. That was a trip of a lifetime. That was our honeymoon, by the way, out in Ethiopia. So this June is going to be a little bit different, going to be a little bit more chill, going to be able to sit back and analyze the 49ers, try to pass the time for you over the back half of June. We're going to go through a lot of 49ers workout stuff. Obviously, Brock Purdy is working hard. You saw Ricky Pearsall working hard, and we can answer some of your questions. Maybe take a look at that 49ers roster that I could pop open on the screen in a little bit. But we'll open this up to 49ers Q&A at this point to take the floor to you. Brian says he thought that Purdy would be in the 91 to 92 range as an MVP candidate. Absolutely. And, one thing that these ratings and a lot of Brock Purdy's detractors don't take into account is the fact that he's extremely quick, one of the best movers in the NFL. For some reason, they think that's not possible with Brock Purdy, but the 10-yard split tells the story. He's got a 95th percentile 10-yard split amongst quarterbacks. And 2, the accuracy is sublime from Brock Purdy. He puts the football right where it needs to be. I see a lot of people today online saying, well, Trevor Lawrence has an extremely high drop rate. Receivers aren't catching the football, and it's hurting Trevor Lawrence. But that can go both ways. Trevor Lawrence can also be hurting his receivers by not throwing the most catchable football. One thing that Brock Purdy does really, really well is he throws an eminently catchable football. The 49ers drop rate has plummeted ever since Brock Purdy took over as quarterback. And I think that Jimmy Garoppolo threw a fairly catchable football. He wasn't throwing these heat missiles out there. Trey Lance, I think, was throwing too hard. That was hard to hold on to if you're a receiver. But Purdy, he has more accuracy than Garoppolo and way more touch than somebody like Trey Lance. He's able to put both into the basket, right? The accuracy and the touch. And those are the 2 main ingredients toward catchability. And the fact that the 49ers drop rate has been so much lower with Brock Purdy than with quarterbacks before him, I think speaks numbers. So you can't just go out there and say that Trevor Lawrence has been hurt disproportionately by drops without mentioning that sometimes a quarterback and the way that he throws can be more conducive to drops. That was yesterday's news, though. Trevor Lawrence, big contract, sets Brock Purdy up to make more money than him. Let's go through some of the questions. What's impressing me, if anything, about Braden Willis so far this year? Well, he's handled the greater target share in stride. Over the course of OTAs, we saw Braden Willis catch many, many more passes than he did last season. So that part, and again, George Kittle wasn't part of the equation for the 49ers during scrimmage work. He's still out. He's going to be back for training camp coming off the core muscle surgery. So Willis was in much more of a tight end one role. But I think that he showed that he can catch the football. He showed concept of the route combinations. His next proving opportunity is going to be during training camp. And then we'll see how much the 49ers trust integrating actual targets for the tight end 2 position once George Kittle is back and Braden Willis is playing in that tight end 2 role. From a physical standpoint, we've already seen a decent amount from Braden Willis last year. He was more of a blocking tight end. And it was impossible to see a lot during OTAs because pads weren't on. So we saw more of the passing league action, and he was getting a whole lot more targets than last season. What's going on with Greenlaw? He's rehabbing from his Achilles injury. I don't expect Dre Greenlaw to be back at the start of training camp. Probably would expect the PUP list for Dre Greenlaw to begin the season. That's going to be at least 4 games. That's not been confirmed, but that is what I would expect. Do I believe that sacks are a QB stat? A large part of sacks are a QB stat. Nothing is ever black and white in football. So obviously you've got the offensive line letting up the pressure, but sacks are more correlated to the quarterback than they are to the offensive line. Pressures are more correlated to the offensive line than they are to the quarterback. So I like to look at pressures if I'm taking a look at pass protection statistically, and I look at sacks. I also look at pressure to sack ratio. How many pressures turn into sacks? Because that can give you a good idea of how effectively a quarterback avoids them. It's too early to evaluate what's a close position battle and what's not. They've just been out on the field for OTAs. Let's keep on emphasizing that. OTAs, remember how people overreacted to OTAs last year? People just losing it after every single practice. I would tweet, Trey Lance threw a pick 6, and everybody thought I was biased against Trey Lance just for saying that he threw a pick 6. And people thought that, every single thing was some kind of referendum on a player's entire career. And it just wasn't that wasn't the case. We didn't even have Brock Purdy out on the field during OTAs last year. It's not that serious. It's where young players go and get their work. It was training camp where the 49ers actually held the battle between Trey Lance and Sam Darnold. And yes, Darnold did win that battle, but to act like the battle was close or distant based on what happened at OTAs just kind of showed a misunderstanding from people last year of what OTAs are actually all about. And that is just a little bit of a chance for young players, especially, to get into the flow, to learn some of the concepts, to get on the practice field, shake off the rust. It's a warm up in a lot of ways for training camp, which is coming up in about a month. When I come back to Orange County in August, I'm supposed to check out Nate's Corner with a K for a breakfast burrito near the John Wayne Airport. I will not regret it. RE3 recommends that. It's a good recommendation. So when I'm in Orange County, this is for the practices against the Saints. The Saints are going to have their training camp in Irvine this year. The Rams used to be at UC Irvine. The Rams are now up in LA County. That facility was going to be unused unless the Saints came in from Louisiana to use it. The Saints and the 49ers actually play week 2 of the preseason against each other at Levi's Stadium. Sunday night game. So probably, I'm guessing, Thursday and Friday, they're going to have joint practices in Irvine. The 49ers and Shanahan said that there's actually more practice field room, and it's easier to run a 2-team practice in Irvine as opposed to Santa Clara. That's why the 49ers are flying down that way, and that's why I'll be checking out Nate's Corner for a breakfast burrito. So those of you in Orange County, maybe you could pre-scout it for me. Nate's Corner, right by John Wayne Airport, where I'll be flying into. How do I think that they lighten Christian's workload, or they keep feeding him the ball? Kyle Shanahan has said that he wants to lighten his workload. You've got to have, and it's really hard to find somebody that's going to replicate all of Christian McCaffrey's skill set because he's a Hall of Fame trajectory player. So that's not easy to find with depth on your team. But you have to approximate his threat in both the pass game and the run game as credibly as possible so that you don't take too big of a step backwards when his backup is on the field. I think that the 49ers have obviously struggled to do that because Christian McCaffrey is Christian McCaffrey over the past couple of seasons, ever since he came over from Carolina in the trade. But they've worked hard to stock that running back position with as much talent as possible this offseason between Patrick Taylor Jr., the Green Bay Packers running back, who's 6'2", almost 6'3", really good pass protector. So you'll feel good about his multi-positional skill set when he's out there because he could run and he can obviously block. I think he caught some passes out of the backfield for Green Bay last year too. Then it's really interesting because Cody Schrader was an all-around back, really good back from Missouri coming out of the SEC. But the draft pick, Isaac Guerendo, was initially a receiver. He was a receiver to begin his college career, converted to running back. So that means that at some level he's going to have a multi-positional skill set. He has the ability to move out of the backfield and catch the football. And I think that, whoever's the backup, and I still haven't talked about Jordan Mason and Elijah Mitchell, who's obviously the running back 2 right now, but whoever's on the field instead of McCaffrey, he's going to have to show that he can catch the football. He's going to have to show that he can pass block. He's going to have to show that he can run. He's going to have to show that he can threaten in all phases because that's what allows you to keep schematic integrity. You could run the same plays, threaten the same things if the back has a similar array of skill set as Christian McCaffrey. I'm not saying he has to be as good as McCaffrey, but he has to be able to threaten in similar ways so that defenses play it as honestly as they do when McCaffrey is on the field. And McCaffrey's threat in multiple different facets of the game is what makes him such an impactful player. If you're not sure if the 49ers are going to be passing out of what looks like a running formation because McCaffrey is back there and he could run an angle route, all of a sudden the defense is a little tied up. They're more on their heels than they are on their toes. And it works the other way around too. You might be able to run out of a passing formation because it's Christian McCaffrey in the backfield for the football team. So it's tricky to replace that kind of threat, but you can find skill sets and adaptability from players, even if they might not be at Christian McCaffrey's level on the aggregate, they can still threaten at similar spots. And I think that's going to be the key to giving Christian McCaffrey more breathers to keep him a little bit fresher in this 2024 season. Podcast is returning soon. It's going to be packaged a little bit differently, so stay tuned for that. Okay, I know that a lot of you have been asking about Here's the Catch with Matt Barrows, so stay tuned. It may just be a couple of weeks, but definitely by the start of the regular season, we'll plan on having a podcast up and running as well. Steven says that Purdy should be 100. I'm not sure about that. I think the interception rate was still a little bit high for the 49ers. And for Brock Purdy last year, somewhere around 2.5%. I think they need to get it under 2%. So, there obviously still are some weaknesses. But again, this guy, people try to compare him to Jordan Love. He's obviously better than Jordan Love. I think it's obvious that Brock Purdy is better than Trevor Lawrence. He's been playing for a much shorter period of time in the NFL than both of those guys, right? Purdy joined in 2022. Lawrence was in 2021. Jordan Love, wasn't he drafted back in 2020? Yeah, Love was back in 2020 because that spurred the really good year from Aaron Rodgers after Love was drafted. So Brock Purdy is not a finished product yet, which is probably the best piece of news for the 49ers because he's already been so damn good. And that is with so little experience at the NFL level. Now, the college experience was huge. That's what allowed him to beat out Trey Lance in the first place. Was the fact that he started for 4 years in a major college program at Iowa State. The reps, the feel for the game, the leadership capability, all of that for Brock Purdy was honed in over the course of his 4 years at Iowa State. This right here is the Ayuk $30 million per year is the most oversimplified talk ever. I have to repeat this. The 49ers can jack up the APY. What the agents are actually arguing about right now is, and that's agents with the 49ers representation, it's about fully guaranteed money. It's about how this is going to hit the cap, because you can make 30 million in a fake way. You can tack on non-guaranteed money at the end to raise the average, but it's the fully guaranteed money which we should be looking at. My question is, will Brandon Ayuk exceed 50 million in fully guaranteed money? Is that what he wants? It's a lot easier to talk about average per year because that's the vanity number. That's what people talk about on the surface. And while it's somewhat of an indicator as to how big a contract can be, it can be very deceptive. So I don't like to look at it. So you can like all the tweets that he wants about the APY, but that ultimately is not going to be a sticking point in this negotiation. It's going to be about the guarantees, as every single NFL deal is. Steve says, a good point. At this point, no one is like Mahomes. Well, I think people have some characteristics that can be like Mahomes. I would say nobody's as good as Mahomes. Mahomes is more established. Steve hopes that Purdy will get up to his level. And in many ways, Purdy has rivaled Mahomes. He went toe-to-toe with him in this past Super Bowl. And probably Purdy's team would have beaten Patrick Mahomes' team had a punt not hit inadvertently off of Darrell Luter Jr.'s leg. So some of this stuff is outside the QB's control. And as you can see, the perception of Brock Purdy and the perception of Patrick Mahomes might be a little bit different now if a play that was outside of both quarterbacks' control had gone a little differently. So in the case of looking at Purdy and looking at Mahomes, you have to remember Mahomes has been in the league since 2017. Brock Purdy's entered 5 years later than that. They do a lot of things similarly, and then they have a lot of things that they do stylistically differently. Mahomes has the Super Bowl championships under his belt. Purdy doesn't yet, but Purdy at this rate is going to get his as well. So we just have to watch that and try to isolate how we quantify what each of these quarterbacks does away from their system, away from their team as much as we possibly can. And this is going to lead to debates forever, which is why championships generally are the greatest cudgel to swing around during debates. You could, because the Brady Manning debate went on for 2 decades, but ultimately people said, well, Brady won all these championships. Manning didn't win quite as many championships. So we're going to give Brady the nod. That's why Patrick Mahomes truly has a lead over the rest of the league by as much as he does right now in terms of perception. It's because he has those 3 Super Bowl titles under his belt. And whether or not you think that's fair, because football is a team sport, doesn't matter. That's how people look at it, right? And if you're talking about legacies and you're talking about public perception, the Super Bowl championships do matter. Mahomes is a winner. He finds ways to win. That is what makes him great. And I think you could say the same thing about Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy found ways to win in big moments for the 49ers. NFC Championship game, NFC divisional round against the Packers. Over the course of the season, Purdy delivered. Even during the 3-game losing streak when the 49ers defense was really at fault, that was a horrific stretch for the 49ers defense. Purdy was almost single-handedly keeping the 49ers in those games. I remember the Bengals game. He's running all over the place, throwing back across the field. Those were turning into touchdowns and big 3rd and 4th down conversions. Unfortunately for the 49ers, again, their defense couldn't stop a nosebleed, but Purdy, I think, showed us a lot during that time that he does have that winning DNA, and it's shown up in the results. He's going to get more chances to win football games here in 2024. Team. Together, everyone achieves more. I love it. Aaron asks, the 49ers added a lot of experience. Does Shanahan play more rookies than normal, considering the experience and the schedule rest differential? Does Staley's influence lead to more guys playing defense? This is a really good question because, yes, they did add a lot of experience. even through the NFL draft, which obviously is only going to produce rookies. But what the 49ers did is they made sure that they focused on guys who had played a lot of college football. So if we have a look at the roster right here, we will see a whole heck of a lot of teal, which is rookies. And teal's free agent additions. Green represents rookie players. Pearsall played a lot in college. Jacob Cowing played a lot in college. Dominic Pooney played a lot in college. Didn't give up a sack over 2 years at Kansas. Renardo Green played all of his years at Florida State. Didn't transfer. Malik Mustafa played a lot in college, a lot of different positions. Same with Tatum Bethune. I mean, these are really, really polished players. It's not the Trey Lance experiment a couple of years ago. He didn't play a lot in college. And because of that, there was a whole lot of development that had to happen at the NFL level. Brock Purdy played a lot in college, as I just mentioned. So a lot of these guys are very, very experienced. The less experienced guys are players like Mason Pline, who started his career as a college basketball player. Same thing with Tariq Owens. But I think that the practice squad is probably the ceiling to begin the 2024 season for those players. Otherwise, the 49ers did add a lot of experience because, yes, they do want players to get on the field sooner rather than later. The best way to put it is this. The 49ers have played 20 games in each of the past 3 seasons. That is 60 games in 3 seasons. So that's a lot. And you have a veteran core that has had to play those 60 games over 3 seasons. At some point, the wear and tear catches up to you. The key is to allow the veteran core to lead the football team, but you fill out some of the dirtier work positions with younger, fresher, more cost-controlled talent. That helps you survive the marathon. That's why this year's draft was so important for the 49ers. It was about infusing the roster, not spots 1 through 10, but spots 10 to 53. It was about infusing the roster with youth, with freshness, and with talent that won't sink the ship if it does play, but it will give you that boost of energy that you need as you look to play potentially another 20-game season. If the 49ers make it back to the Super Bowl, we're going to see their fourth straight 20-game season. They will have played 80 games in 4 years. It's half of a baseball season in 4 years. That's a lot for the sport of football, right? So that's why these rookies are so important. That's why the free agent additions are so important. It's not just the green on here. It's all the teal in the D-line room. We know that playing D-line is extremely exhausting over a long period of time. Probably the most exhausting position to play physically. So they added Malik Collins. They added Leonard Floyd, who's a workhorse, by the way. Jordan Elliott, Yetur Gross-Matos, Shaquille Brown. We'll see if he can find a way to make the football team. They added all of these players because they reworked the line around durability, and they looked at durability in the draft as well. But they looked at durability and experience so that they can be as powerful as possible entering the home stretch of this 2024 season. It's not just how you start, it's how you finish the marathon. I will supply a link right now in the chat section, the live chat section, to the roster. So I'm doing it in the comments as we speak. What other future contracts do we see affecting Purdy's contract? I would say Tua's contract, Tua Tagovailoa. Tua takes a lot of the same criticism as Brock Purdy, but I think it actually is more applicable to Tua. I don't think he creates plays out of structure at nearly the same level that Brock Purdy does. But he is a timing thrower, and it's going to be really interesting to see how Miami values that and how badly they think they need that in their system. But he's going to be in line for a new deal as well. And that's one that could potentially exceed $55 million. Mahomes can rework his deal at any time to exceed $55 million. Maybe Mahomes is the guy that hits the $60 million average with the next rework of his deal. They signed him to a 10-year deal, but it's Patrick Mahomes. And there are a lot of escalator clauses and flexibility within it to make sure that he remains really well compensated. throughout the lifespan of that contract. So look out for Tua, and I don't know when the next maneuverings with Mahomes will be, but that can happen any offseason, unless they've already done something this offseason. I haven't been following it closely enough, but I think it's still technically at $45 million per year, which technically makes him underpaid. But again, that deal is unique. We've never seen a 10-year deal in NFL history. Up until that point, that was the first one. Tyreek Hill does want a new deal. I don't think that the Dolphins are obligated to give him one. It's kind of like I talked about it yesterday. Deshaun Watson set precedent. Or he didn't set precedent. Deshaun Watson got the biggest deal ever in terms of fully guaranteed money, $230 million, way more than like the $130 million of the quarterback number 2. And that only would set precedent if the rest of the league started awarding deals like that. Justin Jefferson got a massive deal, $88.7 million fully guaranteed. Number 2, Tyreek Hill, $52.5 million. So Tyreek probably wants to close that gap because he wants Justin Jefferson's deal to mark the new precedent now. But I don't think that the Dolphins have to oblige that. Tyreek can then sit out, but Tyreek doesn't have that many prime years left. So the leverage is on the side of the team because A, they executed the contract agreement and have team control over Tyreek Hill. And NFL rules in a lot of cases help teams because the franchise tag, the threat of it, is worth a whole lot less than what Justin Jefferson is making. That, I always bring that back to Justin Jefferson and the Vikings. Like, what were they doing? Were they just bidding against themselves? That's what it seems like. It doesn't seem like they were forced to give him that much money. They definitely weren't, but they did. So it creates a situation where the rest of the league is looking at the Vikings saying, oh, that's kind of annoying because now you pissed off our receivers because they want as much money as your receiver, or they want more money than they have now. But the other teams can just shrug and say it's too bad. The receivers have to deal with the disappointment. It's great for Justin Jefferson. Tyreek Hill right now wants the new deal, but I don't know if the Miami Dolphins have to oblige him or if they will oblige that request. The cap hits aren't too bad on Lawrence's deal because of the guaranteed money. Why don't we open up Trevor Lawrence's deal? Oh, wow. They stretched this out void year-wise big time. Multiple option bonuses on this Trevor Lawrence contract, as I can see. I'm going to toss this up onto the big screen for you guys so we can have a look at it. Just give me 1 second. So, as you can tell here, this contract has cap hits all the way through this last line. 49ers Q&A is covering it up. Maybe I could take this off. This last line, it's 2032. These are void years, obviously. The last 2 seasons are void years, so he's under contract through 2030. But they're using the accordion-style bonus structure to take money all the way to 2032. He's got a $37.5 million signing bonus. Wow, $140 million of option bonus money. I haven't had a chance to study this contract yet, so this is fascinating. I'm getting to do this right now in real time. So $140 million of option bonus money, which means multiple option bonuses. I'm wondering if this is a quadruple option. One definitely kicks in 2025. Another kicks in 2026. Yeah. Oh, wow. This is a staggered deal. Well, we were thinking quadruple option for Purdy. How many options is this? 1 signing bonus. There's 2 on the option bonus. There's 3 on the option bonus. There's 4 on the option bonus. There's 5. There's 5 bonuses. This is how do you say 5? Quintuple? This is a quintuple bonus contract. Holy crap. I should make a little spreadsheet to illustrate this, the quintuple bonus contract for Trevor Lawrence. And that's why they had to tack on all these void years to 2032. So the cap number is $15 million this year. They keep it at 17, 24, 35 up to 47. And then you've got 78, $74 million cap numbers in 2029 and 2030. But guess what? As I was illustrating when we were talking about this with the 49ers, the cap is increasing. So if teams push that money out into the future using these bonus structures, and I'll show you how the 49ers have used them. The 49ers have never used a bonus structure as big as Trevor Lawrence's. But if teams start to do this, then they can, it's actually like a zero interest loan. So my article is called How the 49ers Paid Christian McCaffrey and Created All This Cap Space. This, I think, helps illustrate the bonus structure that applies to the Trevor Lawrence deal. They give him a signing bonus that stretches out over 5 years against the cap. So he gets the money now, but the money is divided up into 5 over the salary cap up until 2028. Then next year, they give him an option bonus that he gets into his bank account at once, but it stretches out over 5 years to 2029. Then in 2026, they give him another option bonus that stretches out over 5 years to 2030. In this way, it's like a triple accordion structure to keep the cap hits now low and the cap hits later higher when the cap is larger. If Trevor Lawrence's deal was illustrated in this way, as I think I'll do to help people conceptualize this, but I think that you guys can kind of see where this is going. Lawrence's would look like this, except that it would have 5 of these accordions, not just 3. And they'd be staggered as steps further to the right. 5, and it stretches all the way to 2030. So that's a quintuple bonus structure for Trevor Lawrence. What you're seeing is teams are betting on the salary cap increasing moving into the future. It just increased $30.4 million. That was an NFL record. There's no penalty for pushing money into the future. It's not like a mortgage where you're paying interest on it. It's a zero interest situation. So as long as you can keep your flow control at a balanced level, and nobody knows exactly how balanced it needs to be because we don't know what the cap is going to be. That's not announced until the start of the new league year, around then every single season. But as long as you could play it smart, anticipate where it might be, and give yourself some flexibility moving forward with restructures, you can successfully push money into the future, stay under the salary cap, and pay guys contracts like we saw Jacksonville pay Trevor Lawrence. Not like I would recommend it. I don't think that Trevor Lawrence has been good enough for that kind of money, but Jacksonville did it. They wanted to get to it a little bit sooner just in case they thought that, maybe Lawrence improves this season. Maybe that drop rate does go down for Trevor Lawrence from his receivers, and he ends up being a top 5 guy. Great. Then he'd be even more expensive next offseason. So they got him under contract at this rate right now. What sort of production do I expect from Pearsall this year with all the weapons he'll be playing with? Well, one thing I'll tell you is that rookie receivers under Kyle Shanahan with the 49ers, especially those who have been drafted high, have been very productive as rookies. There's a myth that they haven't, but Brandon Ayuk had a 743-yard season. He was on pace for a 1,000-yard season before he got hurt in 2020 as a rookie. Deebo Samuel had an 803-yard season in 2019 as a rookie. Even Dante Pettis' best stretch in an NFL uniform came when he was a rookie in 2018 under Shanahan with the 49ers. The sophomore slump has been a thing. Brandon Ayuk was nowhere near as good as a second-year player. Deebo Samuel saw a lot of injuries in 2020 as a second-year player, and Dante Pettis was on his way to being cut as a second-year player. He lasted until 2020 with San Francisco, but 2019 was not kind to Dante Pettis. So the sophomore slump has been a thing. Rookies, though, have been involved right away. Now, I don't think the 49ers have ever been this loaded with a talented rookie receiver. So Pearsall's going to have to be competing with Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel and George Kittle and Kyle Juszczyk and Logan Ryan. Well, Logan Thomas. I always say Logan Ryan. Former 49ers DB. Logan Thomas, Jawan Jennings, Trent Taylor. He's going to have to be competing with a lot of different receivers, pass catchers for footballs. That being said, I think that he's a really good player. I mean, we can talk more about Ricky Pearsall as we watch him. We could see the footwork. We see the ability. Right there, the throw was behind him, and he was definitely upset that he couldn't haul it in. But we know he can catch. Ricky Pearsall is somebody who already had good rapport with Brock Purdy over the course of OTAs. So what they'll do is I think they'll integrate Ricky Pearsall as a depth option to begin, because you have to remember that players, your entire stable of them does not stay healthy for full seasons. You have to remember what I said earlier. 20-game season, 3 times in a row for the 49ers. They do another one of these, they'll have played 80 games in 4 years. There's going to be wear and tear on the veterans. You need your depth. And the best way to work Ricky Pearsall into the mix is to have him be a depth piece to begin. Then he can take over as a starter. You got plenty of time, though. You need depth, because without it, you're not going to go the distance. Pearsall can start in that role, and Pearsall can grow. Organically, opportunities will appear in the very physical world of the NFL. Unfortunately, injuries are part of the equation. So we've seen Brock Purdy working out a little bit earlier. This was special for San Francisco when they saw this last year, and he was out in Jacksonville working with Will Hewlett and Tom Gormelli. Looks like he's back out there, getting stronger, massive quads, strong lower body for Brock Purdy. He has bulked up, and I think a lot of what he's done will not only make him a better passer, but I think that we can also expect Brock Purdy to be a better runner, and he already was a really good runner in 2023. So this is the work that he's putting in. We saw this on social media today, and it definitely something that I hope holds you over between now and the start of training camp. And we also saw Christian McCaffrey and the making of the Madden cover. This is what I told you guys. It wasn't from a real game. They've got actors playing the Raiders as they worked on this Madden cover. This came out today. Look at this. It's like magic. McCaffrey with good lighting, nice flash, and the Raiders chasing him in a game that never actually happened. All right, we'll talk to everybody very soon.